what people don't understand is that you're only going to make probably between $1 and $3 from your book. You can't even buy a pizza probably with the number of books you're going to sell at $3, you get a profit a piece. So you need those funnels in place because that's really where you're going to make your money. Your book is something that someone might pick up because they see you on a podcast presenting how you do this, how you got here, and how you view the world of what you do.
When you get your head around, it's not to actually sell the book itself, then you start to see the big picture, which is why you want the platform there in the first place. Welcome to today's episode of Business Growth Lab. I'm your host, Samantha Riley, and today we're going to talk about books, but not in the normal, you're in business and you need to have a book, and that's the end of the story. We're going to talk about why the book isn't your business model, and I've invited Juliet Clark to come and share her expertise on this topic. So, Juliet, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited about this conversation. Last time we jumped on when we got introduced by a good friend and we had a chat, and I think our 10-minute conversation ended up going for like an hour. I came out to the kitchen and my husband was like, I was wondering if you were ever going to come out of the office. We got along so well. So I'm so excited to talk about this with you. Now, you've helped over 600 authors and entrepreneurs to write and publish their book. How did you get to where you are today? Because I think that'll give some context into, what's your point of difference?
So, after college, I worked in traditional publishing, and then I went on to big advertising. When I say big, I worked on $1 billion account. So, it was an introduction to marketing that I hadn't had before. And so I didn't really do anything with it. And then I was going through a divorce in 2007, and I wrote my first mystery novel. And I engaged a self-publisher. And back then, the self-publishers were playing this game where they were traditional publishers who were bad mouthing self-publishing. But at the same time, they were opening subsidiaries of those big companies to serve self-publishers, and they weren't doing
Mm.
it very well. So that's where I started. By the way, that first book and the divorce, I killed my ex-husband in it. It's a joke with us to this day.
That is hilarious.
So cathartic, but I don't look good in orange, so that jumpsuit wouldn't have suited me. So
Ah.
anyway, so I got in with this self-publishing company, and they were offering marketing. Book here, have a business card with your book on it. Have
Yeah.
a book marker. They were just the most ridiculous author promotions. And so with my second book, I said, oh my gosh, I need an audience because I only sold 135 copies of that book at the time it released. And I think when I cleaned out my grandmother's house that she probably had 100 of them. So
Yeah,
I didn't
right.
I didn't sell very many. Anyway, so that by the second book, I was determined I was going to learn how to do publishing, how to do the formatting, how to do cover design, where and how to do this on my own in that market back in 2010. So that's where it started. And it was just meant to be my own books. And then my third book sold over 25,000 copies. And all of a
Oh,
sudden,
wow.
I had all these people coming to me saying, help me. So I sort of the accidental publisher. I gave up my real estate career to publish books, and I've just been going ever since.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, congratulations on 25,000 books. It's certainly better than 135, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So let's start here. What do people normally get wrong before they even sort of start writing? You mentioned that there was a big difference between the first time you did it and the second time you did it. What was the difference? And yeah, I was going to say, what does it cost you more than just book sales?
So the one thing I did between those two was building an audience. So back then we had more archaic tools than we have now. But building a website was definitely my number one priority. And if you remember back then, websites were really hard to build and expensive, not like
Yeah, they
today.
were.
And
Totally.
then getting involved where they really started to take off was with digital marketing.
Hmm.
So we started back, I think, like 2013, having a landing page, having an opt-in, building that list, because that list becomes your fan base. And I was out speaking about books at that time too. So, I was selling books that way. So it just evolved over time as the marketing evolved. But the number one mistake that authors make is they don't build their platform first.
Mm,
And that, especially as you and I discussed, if you have a business, you don't jump right in and write
mm.
that book, because that book may be a lead generator, but if you don't have an opt-in, if you don't have your website, if you don't have all those tools in place, your business is probably going to struggle because you're not marketing the business first. And that's how you're really going to make your money, not the book.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Business first. I love this because I think that there's so many people that decide to write their book to almost work through their own thoughts, and then sort of nothing happens off the back of that. What what point at someone's business do you feel like is the best time to think about writing a book?
That's an interesting question, because what people don't understand is that you're only going to make probably between $1 and $3 from your book, unless you
Yeah.
publish Amazon only. If you go through a real publisher, you have to give 55% of that retail price to the distributor. So if that's Amazon, if it's Barnes and Noble, if it's, I think you guys have a big book site there. So you have to have that second step. So you need those funnels in place. You have to have, what are you going to sell if you're going to use that book as a lead generator? Because that's really where you're going to make your money. Let's take you, for example, as a scaling coach. You've got all your marketing in place, you build your platform, you have a big list, you have a great social media presence. Now might be the time to do it. But do you have something you're going to sell that audience at the end? So your ideal should be that messaging is in place, and your book is something that someone might pick up because they see you on a podcast or they listen to your podcast. And there are scaling coaches everywhere, but
Mm-hmm.
something about Samantha resonates with me. So that is your goal with the book, presenting how you do this, presenting how you build, how you got here, and how you view the world of what you do. Because that can make all the difference between someone picking it up and saying, I like Samantha, she's an action girl, or I like Juliet, she seems a little bit more passive, which we know that's not true. But it's an example. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I would say the main reason people work with me is because I'm all action. I tell people up front, if, you're going to get an assignment with every coaching call. You're going to know along the way. So if you choose that's the route you want, I'm your girl. If you want somebody to just pat you on the head and say, "Oh, let's give this a try," and what's going on with you today, and getting sidetracked, I'm probably not your girl. So
Mm.
that's you have to have that second piece in place as a business, because you can't even buy a pizza probably with the number of books you're going to sell at $3
Totally.
and get a profit a piece. But what can you lead those people into that is 5,000, 10,000, $25,000?
Yeah, which is way better than $30 for the book anyway. And it takes people a little while to get their head around that, right? And different ways to market it. I know quite a few people that um, they will, rather than have a speaker fee, they'll have the opportunity to sell books, or the other way, um, they might be able to give everyone a book that is at the event that they're speaking at. There's so many different ways to use it. And
Hmm.
I think that when you get your head around, it's not to actually sell the book itself, then you start to see the big picture, which is why you want the platform there in the first place, right?
Exactly. One of the most brilliant strategies I've ever seen was a book called The New F Word. And the F is not what you think it is. But he actually would go out and speak, and he would sell the book, or he would sell a low cost program, a 2-day workshop for $97. Who can't afford that? I watched him sell like almost 100% of the room. I think there were only three
Mm,
people in the room who didn't buy. And then he ran that $97 course every month in Facebook and in his Facebook group. So you automatically became a part of the group. What was brilliant about it, and he caught me this way, was I watched the course. I used some of the tactics. When he did the pitch at the end, I said, oh, I can do this myself. And then
uh-huh.
30 days later, it popped up again because he was giving it again. And I was, a lifetime member with that $97. And I sat there and I was like, I never did anything, did I?
Mm, mm-hmm.
Maybe it's time to listen to the pitch again. And when I approached him about it, he said, yeah, that's what I do. Usually by the second or third time, they realize they're not going to DIY it and they buy the course.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it was really, I thought that was a brilliant strategy to get people in the door. A lot of work, but a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, but also having a complete understanding of your ideal client. Like that is great. That, I often say to people, and I notice this a lot in the fitness industry, that people will take on a client, so a personal trainer or some sort of health and wellness coach, and generally around the 6 week mark, their clients drop off because they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I don't need you anymore. We know that it's a normal pattern, so why not put something there at the 5 week mark or the 6 week mark to try and counteract that? That's knowing your ideal
Yeah.
client, and he knew exactly the thought process or the pattern for his ideal client. So showing up again and
Mhm.
saying, yeah, it's a lot of work, but hey, there's nothing better than signing clients, right?
There's nothing better. What I loved about it too is he gave these little bite-sized pieces in it. I literally went out 2 weeks later and did exactly what he told me to do and bought a car because it was building business credit. And I just walked away from the deal. I was like, well, if you're not going to use that credit bureau, then there's no sense in me doing that because that's my highest score. And I walked out and they were like, hey, come back here. We'll do what you need to do. They really wanted to sell that car. So, he gave me a little tidbit that was actionable too, which was really great because I was like, what he says works.
So good. So let's talk about these business owners, founders that they've already got the business, they've already got, clients in the door. Um, they do have their funnels in place, but maybe they haven't got to a point where many people know who they are, or their sort of their authority piece isn't well known. What do they need to have in play, or what needs to exist before the book is worth even writing?
So I would start building what's called an ARC team really early, and that ARC is ARC, Advanced Reader Copy Team. We do that in fiction a lot. So start building that team, finding out who will read that book, who will go over to Goodreads and give you early reviews, who will go over and give you Amazon reviews if you give them a copy up front. Get that team built so that when you launch, you have a sweet spot. So it's really important to start building that early because, of course, you're going to build a big team. Your sweet spot on Amazon is 30 reviews. So figure you need a team of 50 because 20 of them will probably flake. But
Yeah.
getting all of that organized so that 3 months out, you have a place to start and getting those early reviews and then being able to book your promotions early. There are a lot of places you can promote your book, but you need reviews or you need it released. So getting all of that in order about 3 months out is really, really helpful. It probably will take you longer than that to write your book, but just starting that process and doing it over time instead of waiting until the last minute.
So good. Now you talk about repurposing as well, and repurposing
Mhm.
specifically podcast content in the books, which is super smart. What's the version of repurposing for people that don't have a podcast? So what is the material that they're probably already sitting on, that they have, that they've forgotten about it? Maybe they haven't realized that it could be repurposed. Can you take us down this little rabbit hole?
Yeah. So of course the blog is or a vlog. a podcast is the best way, but having a YouTube channel or having a blog, you need some sort of content that establishes your credibility. You probably see people out on social media that are like, pick me, pick me. They're, buy my book. They're begging you to buy the book. I can tell right away they didn't have a platform, and that content is part of it. So you can actually take, let's say that you write a blog. We won't go into a podcast for now because a podcast is just such a great way to do this. But let's say you have a blog. Break it down into clips. Get on and record the blog maybe in advance, put it on your YouTube channel. Take that YouTube channel and run it through something like Opus and make little clips, like 1 minute clips for your wherever you post your social media. So putting out those bites and posting at least 3 times a week, there's so many ways you can repurpose sound bites into little memes, but just getting yourself out there and being visible over time. There are so many
Mm.
ways to repurpose. Let's take a podcast. I take mine, I put it through Cast Magic, and I get my email. You can make it into a newsletter. You can make it into a blog. When I do my blog, my podcast, I actually, if you go to my site, I actually have the YouTube video, I have the audio player, and I have a blog. And the blog isn't a word for word, it's an article, a synopsis, maybe 1,500 words. So there are so many ways that you can repurpose. Now, I just said 3 times a week. So post your podcast one day, the audio, post your video over on YouTube the next, maybe on Wednesday, and maybe on Friday, you post your blog that you wrote about it. So lots of different ways that you can repurpose. So you don't have to recreate the wheel every week.
Mm. And it's probably best not to anyway, because the thing is with marketing, if your ideal client is kind of that same person over years, their frustrations and their aspirations are the same. Like there'll be little nuances that, like for example, if you're in business, we're talking about AI now, which we weren't 15 years ago, but the problems of a business owner wanting to get more leads is still the same as 15 years ago, 25 years ago, 50 years ago. Like it's the same thing.
Mhm.
So people are constantly trying to recreate the wheel rather than just going, okay, well, what's this topic that we're talking about? So I think that to what you were just saying, then people do overthink this a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, there's that. If you're brand new, another way you can do this, which we're actually giving a webinar on July 10th, is there is a product out there called BookFunnel. You can go to bookfunnel.com. What we do with some of our clients that don't have lists is we will, if they're a fiction author, we'll have them write a little novella. Maybe it's a prequel to the story they're going to release. If it's the nonfiction author, we might have them, we have one right now who has 3 different mini books, and we actually produce them. We put them over on Kindle, and then we go back to BookFunnel and we do promo swaps. We do book swaps with other authors in the same genre. And we also take that landing page and we run Facebook ads to it. So people are picking it up on Facebook and they're list building now. So
Mm.
I did that with, which book did I give away? I did that with A Fortune Teller's Daughter, and I put 280 new people in my list just in May with
Love
that.
it. Just in May. That's so good.
Yeah.
So, if someone's wanting or considering to write a book, what are the questions that they need to answer or that you would ask before they actually start writing?
So we would want to know who your ideal client is. We have something called the Perfect Reader Playbook, and we actually ask 8 questions about your business, your clientele, who you love to work with. There's some other questions, who your competitors are, which I'm constantly shocked. I would say 1 in 10 people know who their competitors are, which is wild to me. We ask, what would your ideal client look like? How is that different from the people you're working with today? And what kind of people don't you want? Because you and I have been in business a long time. One client that we take that doesn't work out just sucks up so much time and energy.
My goodness,
So yeah,
yes.
yeah. So once we get that report once we get all the answers in, we run the report and it'll actually tell you who your ideal reader is, the demographic, the psychographics. Um, there isn't anybody out there besides me who works on purchase triggers because I came from advertising, and that's a big part of when you're running ads. You need to know exactly why your person buys. And then it goes into layering with it. So remember we talked about, where do you start? The layering is actually you're starting at that unaware phase. And I actually call it, I'm so negative that nobody knows who the hell you are phase. So
Yeah,
um,
that's
at that
yeah.
at that phase, you're actually fighting two things. Not only do people not know who you are, but they don't know what to do.
Mm,
So
hmm.
now you're breaking them in, and it actually tells you these are the blogs or these are the podcasts. This is where you should be on social media because a lot of people aren't on the right social media. They maybe should be on LinkedIn, but they're on Facebook because they know how to use Facebook.
Hmm.
So it tells you exactly what to do. And then after that phase is done, then you move, and you might be in that for 3 or 4 months. That's why platform building is so critical. Then you move into the what problem do I solve phase. So you're making them aware now with materials, and it's a different phase what the problem is. Because if you don't recognize you have the problem, you're not going to solve the problem.
Hmm.
So that's your phase where as a coach or author or whatever you're doing, you're telling them these are the things that indicate you have a problem. And then you start with what have you tried? What has failed? Why haven't you solved this problem? And then you get into the next phase is I have the solution to your problem. So all of those take time to get out there. And then from there, hey, I have a product upcoming soon. That might be your 3 months out, which we talked about, the things that you do to do 3 months out with that ARC team. Now you're making people aware you have a book, and then you launch. So the reason all of that is important to layer over time is most people out there, they wait until after the book is done. And then they go, I have a book, and nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows what they do. And so
Hmm.
they're just out there begging, please buy my book.
My brain went down a completely different path there because people are saying, please buy my book, but it might not be the right person. Like it's your book needs to find those right people that has got
Yes.
that
Yes.
problem that you're able to solve. We don't just want anyone to have that book in their hands because I think what I'm hearing from you is it's not a book from everyone. It's a bridge between your ideal client who's got a problem and this is the bridge that will help them come to you and say, hey, can you help me solve it?
Exactly. So you might have to do a lot of querying in that author platform stage. One thing I find with coaches, the reason that they fail is because they take a problem and they think they know that that's the problem, but they don't really talk to anybody. And I
Mm-hmm.
happen to, I don't know why I noticed this, but when you see patterns in people and you kind of say, okay, you'll hear them say, oh, I went through this and this is how I solved it, but not everybody went through it the same way you did. So you really need to have a dialogue with people. That's what the ARC team can be really critical with is you can try your ideas out on them. Is this how this landed for you? Maybe you give them the first chapter and they come back and they say, yeah, that didn't get it with me. A long time ago, I was part of an ARC team for someone else, and we knew this woman really well. And we came back after reading the book and said, "Where's that deep dive story about what she went through?" And she hemmed and hawed. I really don't want to. It's very personal. And we demanded she put it in. It is the thing that people talk about in the reviews
Mm,
constantly is that
mm-hmm.
transparency, and thank you for sharing that. I thought I was the only person. So, yeah, you really have to talk to people and find out, which you have to do for business anyway.
Yeah, but it's really so I had a very similar situation when I wrote my book because as experts, some things come so easily to us. That's like our zone of genius, right? It's so easy. It's the thing that we go, oh my God, I didn't know that everyone couldn't do that. And what our brain does is it glosses over the details because we so intuitively know how to solve that problem. And I discovered this because in I've only published one book. I've written multiple, but I've only published one. A couple of people read it and they all came back with the same thing. Like, I don't understand this piece. And it's because I'd completely glossed over a whole
Yeah.
piece that made perfect sense to me. But they're like, like, it's like you've said one and one equals five. Like, where's the two, three, four? So it's
Mhm.
super, super important to get other people to read your book. I just want to follow that up because
Yeah.
if I had have published my book without other people telling me that, I would have been in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, and if you can get other people who are not related to you, because your mother's always going to say it's the best thing since sliced
Yeah,
bread,
right.
and
I know.
try to just only have one or two friends because your friends are going to be hesitant to say, no, that kind of sucked. So, you do really need to get people who are objective and know a little bit about the topic just for that reason. Here's the other thing. Don't be afraid to give it all away in the book. If you go to the Perfect Reader Playbook, I give it all away. And the reason I'm not afraid to do that is probably 90% of those people will start it, they will never finish it. Those who do finish it will probably need a little bit of help. And so don't be afraid to give it all away because it's not going to mean that people won't contact you to coach with you. What it might mean is you get the right person who went through and said, I'm trying this. I've got some spots. I may need to work with you.
Mm, mm, love it. This platform that sits underneath the book, you mentioned that maybe 3 months out you want to start getting it in place. Can you kind of talk through in a little bit more detail what needs to actually be in place before you even start writing, or does it happen at the same time? How long out are you making sure that there's certain things in place?
Yes. So I always say 1 to 2 years out
Hmm.
because tech is hard. You're learning tech, you're learning a new way to do something. If you're like me, I'm not very tech. I'm throwing things across the room, but I'm tenacious, so I will keep it up until I figure it out. So you want to have your website up. Yeah, for sure. You want to start your content, and that content has to be consistent. You want to get your social media out there. You're basically doing the basic tenet of book writing, which is I'm showing you I'm an expert. I'm not telling you I'm an expert. Because those
Hmm.
people that are out there screaming the loudest probably aren't the best people to work with. It's those people who are consistently giving you value through their content. So you want to have all of that in place. The other thing is list building. You want to have your first lead magnet. You want to list build. List building is harder than it looks.
Yeah.
So getting all that in place so you have a list. 3 months out, you want to have that ARC team right before, maybe 4 or 5 months out. You want to have that ARC team in place so they're ready to hit the ground when your book goes into pre-sale 3 months out, because that's when you're going to have them, give them the advanced copies. You're going to have them go over to Goodreads and do advanced reader copy reviews over there. And then the day it releases on Amazon, you want them to go over, buy the book, and put reviews into place for you.
So it's not something that you just go, I'm going to write a book and let's just hope it all works out.
No, I have to tell you, I am in a Facebook group right now. I'm just lurking. I'm not there to sell, but it's people that are doing this on their own, and I am horrified at what I'm seeing. But there's this one woman in there that keeps dropping in. I can help. I can help. I can help. But are just kind of lurking because it helps me understand what the problems are
Mm,
and what
hmm.
people are doing. So I can, if you need your book fixed, I can fix it.
Yeah, love it. Now, you just mentioned that the people that are shouting the loudest maybe not the best people to help you. So, what's the difference between sounding like an authority and trying to convince someone that you actually are an authority? Because I think a lot of people feel the difference, but they don't know how to put that into words.
If I have to convince you, I've already lost you. I think that is the best way you can say it. If you consistently see articles or you listen to the podcast You already are testing, you're already there for a reason. It's resonating with you, you're getting good value. I talk about the people who shout the loudest because you've been in business for a long time, and so have I. I used to go to all these events and they would sell all these things and they didn't have. And I think that is
Mm,
part of the problem with our industry is, let's say you end up at a book event first, you think the book is the first step.
yeah.
I told you the story. I had a woman last year who she had a book and we tried to run the Perfect Reader Playbook program for her. She didn't even have a business set up. And I didn't
Hmm.
know that. And I was just blown away. Like, you don't have a business entity, you don't have a bank account, you don't have anything. And the book was like 5 days away from being published.
Oh,
Um,
whoa.
so yeah, but it was one of those things that she went to an event and the first thing she did was a book. Or you
Hmm.
go to that speaker event and they say, be part of our speaker program, get your, your speaker kit, do all this. And by the way, you need a book. So then instead of building the business, they're out doing the speaking coaching, and then they go to a book coach, and then they go to publishing, and they just spent most of the money that they needed to actually grow their business
Yeah.
from the
Yep.
ground
Yep.
up.
Yep. Yep. Totally. Now you've mentioned the Perfect Reader Playbook a couple of times. You and I had a conversation before I hit record, and you generously said that you have a copy of that you can give to our listeners today. Can you talk a little bit around who would be the best person to access this free resource?
So this would be for nonfiction. So your coaches, authors, speakers. It sends you through a series of exercises, and we actually have the reports that you can run over on our website, theperfectreaderplaybook.com. But it actually goes step by step how you are supposed to build this layered marketing. So when you see it, you understand that, oh, I may have had the wrong demographic that I'm trying to get to. One woman realized that she belonged on LinkedIn, although she didn't want to learn it, but she was a Facebook expert. And so her coaching program wasn't working because she was in the wrong place. So it really gives you an idea how to structure all of this so that you are layering your content in the right way to really attract the right people.
Love it. So we will put the link for that in the show notes below. It is prpfree.com, but we'll put the link in the show notes below. Just scroll down, grab a copy of that. Juliet, this has been a really great conversation. I like it because it's not just the, oh, you're in business, you should write a book. Like, this is the real talk of what actually needs to happen. And I think there's too many coaches out there, exactly like you're saying, that are like, oh no, this is the one thing that you need, and it's just not that simple. So I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate the way that you've come in into this conversation. If there was one thing that you wanted to leave our listeners with today, even if they kind of ignored anything else, which you shouldn't, what would that be?
If you have a business, start with the marketing, figure out what you're going to do and have a plan. I feel like so many coaches out there, like they lose a job or, something happens in their life and they just say, oh, I'll be a coach. It looks easy. It's not easy. Like any business, you're going to have to put money into it. Make sure you have the budget and the resources to do it because the last thing you want is a failure.
Exactly. It's very easy to run out of runway. There's very easy. Yeah. Juliet, thank you so much for coming onto the show today and chatting with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.